Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Justin the Food Entrepreneur Show. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host. That's Bizzarro. For anyone who's out there that's trying to find us on social media, you can find us on Instagram. That's the best way to get a hold of us, at Justin the Food Entrepreneurs. You can DM us there or ask any questions you have for the potential entrepreneurs on the show or for me that you would like me to ask or address on the show. You can put them all there. The other one is at me personally, again, 2 Z's, 2 R's, Justin Bizzarro on Instagram, and then the community as that's building, that's Gorilla Brave, guys. That is that community for you guys that everyone's been asking for over the years as we tested it. That is what is out there under Gorilla Brave and also gorillabrave.love. And we are rebuilding that website for everyone and restructuring it as the feedback came in the surveys. Thank you for everyone who did that. With that being said, I have with us from Orlando, Florida, Bas and Catalina Niemeyer from Little Dutch Bakery, and Nathaniel, their son, is also with them. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing very good.
The family unit. We're gonna try to knock this one out for you guys. How are you guys?
We're very good.
Doing great, thank you.
So let's talk about it. Bas, you're a chef, is that correct? And Catalina, you're a Spanish teacher from Colombia, the country, not any of the cities in the United States. And so let's talk about sort of your guys' journey, what brought you together in Florida, and then sort of where this business idea, being the Little Dutch Bakery, where does this sort of start? So take as long as you want. This is your guys' show. We can go back all the way back to your childhoods and sort of talk about your backgrounds as well, because I think that is part of your story.
Yeah, so I started in hospitality at the age of 15 in a small local restaurant in Holland. From there on, I did 2 different culinary schools. And after that, I traveled most of Europe and the Caribbean and the US, where I worked in different companies in the kitchen and in front of house. At some point along the way, I met my now wife, Catalina, and we started baking together. I've always had a passion for bread. Fortunately, I never got to explore that back in Holland. However, together we found our way to make breads, do pastries. And Kalina actually went to pastry school a couple of years ago to learn the fine art and the techniques. So, yeah, she's going to tell you how we got to this point.
So I was actually born in Colombia, and I lived in Venezuela for many years due to parents' job. And then when I was 16 years old, I moved to the United States. I didn't speak a word of English and really kind of went through schooling here in Central Florida. Teaching really kind of inspired me, the effect that teachers had on me, especially as a non-English speaker, which is what kind of influenced me to major in education. And because I was a Spanish speaker, I really had an amazing time sharing about my culture, my experiences, and my language. And that's why I decided to learn in foreign language education, as I am a Spanish teacher. So as the years went by, I think as teachers, we continue to evolve in our careers and really try to find what is going to engage our students. So as I was learning to do a lot of those things, I kept going back to school, and I decided that I wanted to become a principal, and I tried that, and then I found that my passion was not there. And then I went for educational media, and I really learned a lot about technology and connecting with people all over the world. And that basically led us to a YouTube channel that we have together that really kind of allowed us to experience teaching basically Spanish to the whole world. So we started a YouTube channel during COVID, and that's Teacher Catalina. And that was such a great start for us to kind of delve a little bit into social media. And as that developed, then I started really kind of connecting a little bit with that passion that I had from early on, which was baking. And at that point, since school was no stranger to me, I decided to go back to school probably for about a 4th time and major in baking and pastry. And I think that's kind of where our lives merged into this passion that we both had, but now we had common ground to really start working on that and developing that. And at that moment, we kind of just baked for our family, for our friends. We baked for potlucks, for parties, for the occasional friend that had a special occasion and things like that. But we both had our full-time jobs and really didn't dream of doing anything other than just testing things at home. And that changed actually, I would say this December, right, Bas? November, where Bas really kind of started getting the bug of wanting to open a bakery. And I will confess, without further ado, I decided to go on a new platform that is available for chefs and people that bake that is called Hot Plate. And I just basically put us out there to see what would happen. I shared that Hot Plate website with my Facebook friends and family, everything very local, and truly not expecting anything until the orders started coming in. And I had to tell Bas that he had to bake for real people and that we had orders, to which I think he was very surprised. But that's basically how we started.
Yeah.
My gosh. I have just heard about Hot Plate. It's interesting. That's so interesting because I literally just heard about this more in detail. It had crossed my path maybe a little bit, but then I really heard about it. I have so many questions for you guys. Let's go back to Bas first. Let's go back to the interest in cooking. And I'm going to anchor it a little bit from my point of view. One of the things that I think the Netherlands went through, particularly as the European Union, but more so as an evolution as a country in the 70s, 80s, 90s, is food-wise, also culturally, some of the food, the uniqueness, the expertise raised to the surface as tourism came to the Netherlands. The other thing the Netherlands did during this period of time is they bought a lot of farmland. Everyone looks at the Netherlands as a small country, but people don't realize is it actually, in terms of ownership of land in the United States, it is one of the largest owners of farmland, and it does that around the world. So its strategy is a little different. So what just happened there? It now has farmland all over the world after World War II. All these unique items, spices, crops, ideas, cuisines are coming to the Netherlands. There's an revolution there food-wise because of that economic strategy as a country. Okay, so I'm just going to anchor it. So let's talk about why food, what drew you in such a young age. It just stuck, obviously, Bas. So let's talk a little bit about your love of being a chef, which I think is a little bit different than baking, but maybe not. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I was always into food and serving at parties and just helping my parents and grandparents in the kitchen, and just mainly the entertaining part of people, and having the ability to create a great time for people with different dishes or different services. I used to cater a lot of weddings with all sorts of, like, anywhere from barbecue to fine dining. I've been involved, and from there it just went all over the world.
It's amazing. So how do you guys end up in the United States, Florida? Let's talk a little bit about that. Why the destination there? You both end up there independently, but then together. So how does all that happen for you, Bas? Are you actually chasing the culinary pursuit? Is that how you ended up in Florida or the Orlando area?
Yeah, I went to Miami for an internship at a big resort as a food and beverage manager at the end of my bachelor's degree. So I was there for a year, and that's where we met. And after that, I went back to the Caribbean for a short period of time. I was asked to help run a restaurant there. After that, I joined Hans America Cruise Line in one of their steakhouses on the ship for 6 months. And then I decided to come back to the U.S.
Very cool. So did you guys meet through food? Was that the connection, or you guys just met organically? talk to me a little bit about this, because it leads not only to a relationship, but to a business partnership and a YouTube channel. So those are two, dynamics that a lot of relationships don't normally have. Right.
I think it's kind of funny how things happen. If you were to actually meet us in person, Hispanics, we tend to be a little bit on the shorter side, and the Dutch people are one of the tallest people in the world. So we actually have a pretty crazy height difference. I am 4'11" and he is 6'4". So we always joke that it was our height that attracted us to each other. But yes, we actually ended up meeting over food. He was one of the managers at a hotel that I was visiting, and we kind of just connected and kept in touch over the years until we decided that, this is definitely what we wanted to pursue. And then he moved to the US, where I had been living, for 20 something years at that point.
Very cool. So let's talk about launching a YouTube channel, the idea behind it during COVID, the Spanish, but you're using food and cooking and things like that as the vehicle to do it, I believe. Talk to us about the idea. How do you come up with it? How do you name it? How do you launch it? Because I don't think everyday humans like, oh, I'm going to come up with this idea and I'm just going to do it just like this, snap of a finger, launch a YouTube channel, because it's video and people are afraid. So you guys just kind of leaped right in.
Yeah, so we were on a little hike with our little one, and him seeing all the big YouTubers like Mr. Beast and all the other ones, and he's like, oh, I'm going to be a big YouTuber. And we as parents are like, no, you need a real job. You need to study for something, right? But entertaining the joke, we decided like, hey, let's put some videos up. This was I think a month or two before COVID. So we made, I think, 2-3 videos.
Not expecting anything.
No.
At all.
And we are like, oh, this is not going to do. And then, of course, COVID and all the lockdowns happened. So we decided we're home. We have time. So we dove in deep and we did a video a day for, I think, 60 or 90 days straight to keep us busy and in a way kind of sane in that situation. And we started people asking for certain videos, and we did a lot of food videos, a lot of instructional Spanish videos, and over time it just kept growing. And from there we really worked together. We learned how to work together, and very important, we learned that you can basically teach yourself anything. I learned how to record on YouTube. We got different cameras, we got different sound recording equipment, and we upgraded over the years. And Catalina learned how to be on camera, be an actress more than anything else. And if you compare our first videos to our latest videos, it's a completely different production. And it's the same with now the baking. I think a decade ago, I could make a bread and I could make some nice cookies, but I never dived deep into that field of the culinary world. But since I have now, we get such great compliments about the sourdough bread, about our pastries, our pistachio bread, which is a sweet bread with pistachios, is one of our hot items at every market we do.
And the STROOP waffles.
And of course, the STROOP waffles we do make fresh at the markets. So with homemade caramel, and then we make the cookies right there and then for you.
Yeah. I think one of the things that the experience with the YouTube channel taught us was that, you just have to start somewhere. And if you start, that thing can spark to dimensions and to places that you couldn't imagine, which is truly, I think, in part what kind of propelled me to just, Bas wants bakery. I'm going to put him out on the online world and see what happens. And I don't know that without that YouTube experience, we would have been as daring to just put ourselves out there and really try to connect with the world. That's, I think, another thing that YouTube has taught us is to really connect with people from all over the world and establish some sort of connection, which in that case we did through Spanish and food, but now we do through our baked goods. And I think, Bas and I have talked quite a bit. That's one of the things we love when we started delivering our goodies, is being invited into people's homes and just sharing different stories. And now that we are at 2 different markets every Saturday and Sunday, we are loving meeting our regulars, getting to know them, establishing relationships, and getting to know people every day.
So when are you like, okay, the TV show, or YouTube show has legs, let's turn this into actually selling the baked goods and taking a risk and going into the farmers markets, using hot plate, dropping a store, using it as pop-up, however you guys, I'm not fully sure how you're using it, but how do you have this conversation? Because now you're committing to the orders. You have the orders start coming in. You talked about it. So how do you have that conversation where we should just do this? Or is it, again, just something like, let's test this? And it is one of the things that you tested and found success in.
So we found it very hard to get into farm markets. However, by including the Dutch STROOP waffles, which I've made since I was a little child, people are very interested in that. So we went from, with the breads just alone, no farmers market, to getting invited all around town. So we chose 2 of the biggest markets we knew, and that's where we're at right now, at Port Orange and in Mount Dora. So from here, we have sold out every market so far. We're upgrading our equipment so we can bring more. And I think this is going to be a process like YouTube was, little steps. YouTube took years for it to be somewhat profitable. And we are taking that experience into the bakery. Like we have to invest in the bakery, in the equipment we have. We currently do only farmers market and delivery because we don't want to, how do you say that?
We don't want to grow too quick and take the personal part of us interacting with others and really making it what we want it to be, and just losing the beauty of it by growing too fast. So it has grown much faster than we expected. I think that definitely has happened. But right now we're trying to kind of focus on the quality. We do everything by hand, I think, and everything is fresh. Bas, being European, he refuses to bake anything ahead of time and freeze it or anything. We literally bake everything the night off or the morning off for our farmers markets. And even the tags, we posted a couple videos of different things on our Instagram and our Facebook. I, as a teacher, love arts and crafts and things like that. So we have kept everything so organic and so us that we ourselves literally still cut and glue with glue sticks every single tag to make it special. We put bows on all of our packages. People comment how beautiful things are, not only from the baked goods, but the presentation as well. And so we take quite a lot of pride on that. I think going back to your question about having that conversation, I don't know that really happened, if I'm honest. I think we started in November, and with the holidays, it took off. I think we were so busy during the holidays. I was lucky that I was off during the holidays, so I didn't feel overwhelmed. And then we kind of did have a conversation wondering if this would go past the holidays. And maybe there was a little bit of testing. And we thought, oh my goodness, January comes around and, everybody goes on a diet. I'm not sure that we're going to have as much success as we had in December. And to our surprise, the orders kept coming in and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's when we decided to kind of start looking into markets. And that's how we ended up choosing Port Orange every Saturday and then Mount Dora every Sunday. I think those 2 markets really are home right now. And then we still fit in those deliveries for our neighborhood and for nearby areas. And we've also had some special occasions, like realtors have asked us to bake different things for their clients. We have a lady that has visited us at Port Orange that wants to order several pistachio braids for her birthday. So things are growing in unexpected ways.
I love this. I'm looking at the YouTube right now that you did. It's incredible. Okay. The craft, the construction, the improvement. I did look. The skill, the showmanship, these things matter. And being an entrepreneur, especially in today's age where social media means so much in building our businesses. Let's talk a little bit about the carryover skill. There's stacking of skills here for both of you guys in life that leads up to an entrepreneurial thing. I think a lot of entrepreneurs or people that are striving to be entrepreneurs, restaurateurs, whatever, they think that, oh, it's an idea and it just comes. But this is proof right here in both your cases that it's a stacking of skills. It's staying disciplined to what's true to you and allowing that to develop. So I stated a lot of things. One, I allowed you guys for commentary, but I think more importantly, the question is, there's certain things that you guys have done in your lives that have stacked skills for what you're doing now, including the YouTube channel. Can we sort of just talk about those and the arming of your skills or the weaponizing of your skills to allow you to go into business in the way that you are?
Yeah, so we have both lived in multiple countries, so we know what it is to start from scratch and how hard it is. And during my experience in kitchens, I've seen too many people start without any other knowledge. Like, you may sell the best chicken or you may sell the best waffles, but if you don't have all the components it takes to make a business, nobody's going to know you're selling the best chicken. Nobody's going to know where to find you. So that's what we learned with the YouTube. Like, how to take awesome pictures, how to create awesome reels, how to engage people in your social media so they want to come visit you. And then they can taste your product. They have to find you to be able to taste that product. And people love that.
I think they also, the other thing that, we always go back and it's funny that you asked this question, because we've had this reflection over and over about how it's been a journey to get here, and we are definitely transferring a lot of skills that we have gained throughout decades. And that has really, really, truly made a difference. I think that even just the soft people skills where, yes, Bas had always contact with customers, and yes, I always had contact with students, but to really learn to connect on a deeper level and to enjoy getting to know people, I think is something that we built over time. The social media was another thing. I hear often from other friends or people that are trying to start businesses how intimidating social media is. By all means, I totally agree. Social media can be intimidating, but it's a matter of getting started. It's just kind of like what we were talking about. If we look at our first video on YouTube, it's actually a little cringy. The video quality, the sound quality, I don't think I'm even looking at the camera. But over time, the more you do it, the better you get at all of those skills. So one of the things that we have always said is that in a way, without knowing, we've been preparing ourselves for this or for whatever is yet to come.
Awesome. Talk to me about recipes for the bakery. You guys, did you develop them as you were going into the farmer's market, as you were launching the website, or were there traditions? We talked about the Dutch, I can't say the word, but if you've ever been on a United airline flight, everyone knows what we're talking about. Yes, thank you. I do enjoy them very much. I'm not going to embarrass myself more than I already have today, possibly, but the show's not over yet. But talk to me about these things. How did you develop the ideas? How do you develop the things you're going to sell at the bakery? Why call it the Little Dutch Bakery? Why not the Little Colombian Bakery? Let's talk about all those sort of ideas here, sort of flushing out.
Sure. So I think one of the things that inadvertently we did was kind of try a lot of things on family and friends before we put it out to the public. And that kind of allowed us to see what people like. We have a very, very international group of friends that, it's interesting to see their reaction to certain things. So that really has allowed us to do different things. For example, Bas really, really, really wanted to master a baguette. But baguettes can be intimidating. And we have a close French friend, a neighbor, who literally took it upon herself to really help us get to the best baguette by providing the best constructive feedback and criticism so that Bas could grow. Bas, one of the things that I admire about him is that he doesn't give up. He will keep trying and trying and trying until he finds the perfect recipe that he is happy with. And for example, that's what he did with this baguette. He did not stop until it was French approved. And it was really, really amazing to see that this French friend, once she tasted the baguette that Bas had perfected by then, she actually went ahead and shared it with her French group on WhatsApp to let everybody in the French community know that this is where they needed to come buy their baguettes. So that's kind of like some of our things have come up. There's a couple of other recipes that, for example, I learned in baking and pastry school, but we kind of added a twist or changed a couple of things to kind of fit our personalities and fit what our customers really kind of wanted as well. So, and things keep evolving. One of the things that we love to do recently at the Port Orange Farmers Market, we had some scones and we make cranberry orange scones for that specific market. And a lady actually came and said, she really was looking for chocolate scones. So we took it kind of upon ourselves that week to really figure out how to bring a really yummy chocolate scone. And sure enough, she came back the next week. We weren't expecting her necessarily to come back, but she came back and she was so thrilled we had brought basically what she had requested. So we are always listening to our customers. We're always kind of trying to expand our inventory and just change things up a little bit. In regards to the name, I think a lot of people laugh when they hear the little Dutch bakery and then they see the very tall, big Dutch man. But what we really wanted to kind of imply was that, it's a little bakery. We are not a huge bakery. We actually want to keep it small and personal. And that's where that came from. We definitely knew we wanted to include the STROOP waffles. And as much as I went to baking and pastry school, there's definitely a chef in the house. So I listened to chef. And so that's basically how we really wanted to kind of focus on some of his recipes and some of his memories from the Netherlands, which I fell in love when I visited too. And everything that you've talked about, the food scene and the food experience there, it was so eye-opening to me that I really, really was excited about that. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't include some Colombian twist here and there. We are actually looking forward to starting to bring some guava pastries and guava bread into the mix, which we've been testing with my very picky Colombian parents. So that's basically what we are doing. We're kind of just really working on that recipe to get the best out there. So, that's one of the things we do. Another great thing we do is the vast majority of languages that we have amongst us. So it's amazing to be at the market and then be able to have a full conversation in Spanish or in Dutch, and of course in English with people from all over.
I love this. Talk to me about baking license. Where do you do baking? Do you have to go to a kitchen? Do you have a cobbler's license in your home? I don't remember exactly how Florida works. So talk to me about how do you go through all the steps? What steps are necessary to actually launch a bakery like this? Small.
So the beautiful part about Florida is you can start a cottage bakery today, and you don't need any licensing whatsoever. It's just you are limited in your products. It all has to be shelf stable, and so, of course, all breads are, most pastries are, so that's beautiful. We are in the process of getting a license to a commissary kitchen where we will be able to bake different things so we can expand our inventory further. and also grow a little more into the markets.
But having said that, Bas has really vast knowledge of, kitchens and running kitchens and everything else. And we had nice oven that we had bought for myself when I was in baking and pastry school. So we kind of had a couple of other extra things to kind of propel our start a little bit.
Yeah, I love this. And I agree. I think there's a stacking that's going on here still in patience and allowing the journey to sort of be you to follow it and then do the work necessary to see where the opportunity is being presented. I'll phrase it that way. Let's talk about, I'm going to back off of this one a little bit. Let's talk about individual favorite foods, individual meals, cooking, baking. What do you guys like independently as individuals? What is sort of as different backgrounds under one home? Who cooks, who cleans, that cleans doesn't matter in this conversation, but I meant that, like, sort of like the cuisine. What do you guys like normally? Where do you go out? You have such diverse backgrounds in terms of palettes of cuisine. Talk to me a little bit about that, if that makes sense.
So for me, cooking is really a relief of stress. I can cook any time of the day. So I cook most of the time. I love to cook Italian food or a good steak. My favorite meal is a fresh pasta carbonara with real pancetta, homemade pasta, and keep it simple. Don't add too many things to the dish, and it's a big deal in all of my dishes and baked goods. Simplicity is most of the time where you find the most beautiful things.
Then I think for eating, I think we're foodies. Overall, we're foodies, and we love to really try new things. We don't tend to eat out often, but more because of a lack of time than anything else. And because, of course, Bas loves to cook. But when we do go out, we do like to try all sorts of different foods, international foods, mom and pops, little holes in the walls. That's basically where we're at. And then the other thing that we do love to do, we do love to travel different places all throughout the world. And we do tend to focus our vacations on trying different foods, on taking cooking classes and baking classes while we're traveling. I can think of the top of my head, the last time we went to Paris, we learned to do croissants and baguettes in a real French bakery. When we went to Colombia, we took a class to learn how to make the traditional pan de bono and pan de yuca in a farm in the Colombian highlands. And in Italy, we actually, again, took a class to make fresh pasta. And it's just something that we incorporate all of the time. We do have a rule with Nathaniel that is basically, you have to try it. It's okay if you don't like it, but you have to try it. And that tends to open up our palates to the world.
Talk to me about the interest. You're developing these businesses. You're also educating a son on the businesses, involvement in the TV show, education-wise. These are things that I think are the future generations. They're going to use social media more. They're going to use YouTube more for their businesses. They're going to be more hands-on in cooking or baking in their businesses. Talk to me a little bit about that, developing that, the involvement of Nathaniel in the businesses for you guys.
So I think as he was little, it was a little bit easier. Now that he's a teenager, he's still very, very involved. But I think as teenagers, we tend to look a little bit more into ourselves. So he's not wanting to be out in social media as much as he was before. And I do expect that to change as he grows up. But, we do respect those things, but he is heavily involved. Nathaniel actually, during COVID, participated in a competition with the Florida Department of Agriculture. They had a student cook-off. Back then it was called Lunchroom Wars. I think right now it's called Student Cook-Off Competition. And Nathaniel submitted an application, and for all of Florida, he came in second place, which was amazing because it really validated his skills on continuing to learn how to bake and cook. That competition was so interesting because the first submission, he had to bake something with Florida produce. So we went to a farm here in Florida and got strawberries and oranges, and he cooked fresh from scratch strawberry shortcake. And then for the final, he made lasagna from scratch using Florida produce too, tomatoes, broccoli, all that stuff. So it was really, really, really cool experience for him to experience. And he was able to get an awesome Florida pre-grade scholarship out of that, which, it's also great perks. Now, because of that, one of the products that we offer is called an Oreo Eclipse cookie. And it's actually one of our famous cookies. And that was developed by Nathaniel, where he basically spent countless hours in the kitchen trying to figure out a good cookie that he truly, truly enjoyed. So that is something that he bakes himself. And he is big into soccer. So sometimes he's not able to be at the markets with us on the weekend because he has practice or a tournament. But one of the things that we taught him was, he gets paid for whatever cookies are sold, minus the ingredients and minus a couple of other expenses. So we are teaching him a little bit of that financial responsibility as well, and understanding that orders are coming in. So sometimes he has to make the choice of staying home and baking to make sure that we have those products ready before he can go out and hang out with his friends or things like that, since this is kind of like a job for him. And so we are learning that responsibility as well.
Yeah, well, he chose the best sport of them all, but we should note that, by the way, that he chose a good sport to play, soccer. It is awesome. But I'm not biased, but let's talk a little bit about managing this. You guys, I think probably you're raising a son. You have businesses, you have a YouTube channel, there's possible integrations in all sorts of different ways with all the skill sets. How do you manage it now? How do you move this forward, and sort of where are you hoping this does go, even as a small bakery?
Right now, we're both still working our full-time jobs and then baking in the nights and weekends to hopefully grow it to where it fully can sustain us. But right now, we want to take it safe and make sure we have a loyal clientele before we make any crazy decisions. We have plenty of opportunities to do more markets during the week. It's just we want to make sure that we don't dive in too deep too fast. Like, I think that's very important when you're a business owner. You can have a couple great months and things can turn sour really quickly. So we want to make sure that we have our safeguards, we have our rainy day funds before we take this to the next step. And I think I've seen a lot of chefs and restaurateurs make that mistake of going all in too fast with none of backup. And I think especially in the hospitality and bakery field, if your food cost overnight rises like crazy, or what we've seen over the last couple of years, any food items are doubled or tripled, staff costs have doubled. So I think it's very important to make sure you know your clientele, you know what you're going to sell, and you know your prices, you know your profits.
And I think right now we are definitely juggling a lot of things, and it is challenging at times. I do think it's important to talk about the challenges as well. We do count with an impressive and I'm very grateful for the community that surround us, our family and friends that help us in all sorts of ways, from sometimes taking Nathaniel to soccer because we are at the market super early and he really wants to make sure he makes a tournament, to really learning how to manage our schedule. So that really comes in very, very handy to have a supportive group of people that truly believe in you and actually want to see you succeed as well. So it is hard at times, but I think what keeps us going is we are really passionate about this. I think back many times about conversations we've had Friday late nights into the early mornings before we go to our market about how tired we are, but how excited we are to go and set up our cute little tent at the market and start seeing people. So it's almost like we gather all of this energy from our customers, and it sounds a little cliche, but really we have really experienced it over the past month and a half that we've been doing markets, how energizing it is to set up and see people and see how much they're loving the product, that it really just keeps us going.
Yeah, the online presence, obviously that's how I found you guys. I can tell you know there is the showmanship there. I want to get into that in a second. Let's talk about pastries, going to pastry school, that endeavor, what it taught you, would it arm you specifically, the choice to go there, because I think, you know, it's an interesting trajectory. You kind of zagged a little bit, but let's talk about it, the importance of it, because I think it's important to continually educate ourselves in what we're passionate about and have those passions, and we don't know where they're going to lead. But let's talk about schooling. You're a teacher, but now you're being taught again. So let's, you know, a little bit of that as well.
So I always joked that I was going to be in student debt loans for the rest of my life because I really couldn't keep myself out of school. That was, I don't want to say a problem I had, but it was kind of like I always needed to be learning something new. And I totally believe in education, of course, not only as a teacher, but as a student. So, you know, that was one thing that had always been in the back of my mind. That's why I ended up getting multiple degrees, but I couldn't find something that really, really kind of brought me back to that passion of baking. And so as Bas and I kind of started talking about baking different things, and he was in my life cooking and baking, that kind of reignited that passion of baking and doing things with pastry. As a little girl, my dad loved doing art with clay. He did a lot of pottery. So I always worked with my hands growing up and designing different things. So I remembered that from my childhood. And when I started baking in pastry school, you know, I remember even in cake class, as I started making different flours with buttercream, it really brought me back to those memories of working with my hands and creating different things. I think I've always been a creative person. I cannot sit still. Even as a teacher, it kept evolving. Every year I did something different. And even now, my students like when I have siblings of students, they don't see the same teacher every year. It's like things have changed. I've added new things. I have to keep changing and evolving. So that's kind of when I decided to go back to baking and pastry. And it was a shock. I think I had been out of actual school as a student for a little while. And when you go to baking and pastry school, a lot of students just graduated from high school. So they're very young and they're 18, 19, 20. And I was not 18, 19, 20 whatsoever. So that was actually interesting for me to be in a classroom learning with students that some had been my own students at some point. But I was so interested in what I was learning and really trying to understand a little bit of the science behind baking. And that's one of the things that kind of really attracted me, that I kept having kind of these conversations with Bas about. With cooking, he has the ability to be a little bit more creative and let's add a little bit of this and let's add a little bit of that. But with baking, everything is like a formula and a science, and it has to be the certain amount of grams for it to produce the exact product that you want. So that was a little bit different than I had expected at the beginning. And as you learn how to do things and you learn to put different twists on it within the recipe by not changing, like, for example, Bas talks a lot about not changing the hydration of the bread so much. Or when I make the scones, is it better to use dried up fruit versus fresh fruit? Because sometimes it bleeds into the dough. So those are different things that really kind of kept me thinking and evolving within that. And it was actually such a great experience. I made some amazing connections with different classmates that I kind of still am in touch with. And it has been an amazing, amazing experience.
Very cool. I'm going to sort of pose this question in two ways. Lessons learned, like things that you feel like are really valuable things that you've learned along this journey, building the business, launching YouTube together, the valuable lessons, maybe lessons. And then the second way I'll phrase it is maybe it's lessons that you wish you would have known then that you know now. Just for the audience, both can be true, are things that you've grown in or lessons you wish you would have known before. Either way, let's talk about those for both of you.
So for me, it's mainly equipment, especially with the YouTube. You start with the phone you have, and then you're like, oh, we need a camera. And then you're like, oh, there's a more nicer camera. And then you're like, oh, it's a really nice camera. But to be truly, you don't need all the fancy equipment. And that's the same in the bakery. Yes, you need a good oven. We just bought a second oven, but you have to make sure that you don't overspend. And with the YouTube, we definitely did, because we need this crazy camera so we can have way better image and we can control every aspect of the picture, basically. But you start with what you have and slowly grow from there. There are beautiful sourdough ovens out there that run you anywhere from 5 to 10 grand, but you don't really need that. I've seen a lot of people online that do make that step, but $10,000 is a lot of bread and pastries to recuperate that. And yes, at some point it may be worth it, but bake with what you have. And I think that counts for most businesses. Start with little investments and grow from there, because that is a hard thing in a business to overcome. You don't want to. You're trying to work for yourself, not for the bank or someone else you borrow money from. You're trying to have that freedom.
And for me, I think one of the big lessons that came to me with primarily the YouTube was, when you put yourself out there, there's going to be people that love you, and then there's going to be people that don't love you that much and that feel very compelled about putting all sorts of comments that are not so nice, but they feel they can do that because they are behind a screen or behind a computer. And I think that was a tough process, I will say, from the very beginning, really putting yourself out there and opening yourself up for some of those comments and some of those, I don't know, just messages that they would send you. But like with anything else, you end up really learning what your true value is, and that you're not gonna be the perfect match for everybody, and that it's okay for some people not to like you. And one of the things we learned with the YouTube is to grow some thick skin in some areas that are just, just comments that you just kind of have to read and let it go, because sometimes they are projecting onto you something that has nothing to do with you. But it was definitely a learning process that took time. And I think kind of just also prepared us for this, because you never know what situations you come up with, especially when you put yourself out in social media.
Yeah, I do understand that one. Interestingly, no, there was no amount of success in business and in life that prepared me for that one. I will be honest with you. When, the podcasts or putting yourself out there in any way, I just didn't, all the things that I could never possibly think of being a positive minded person, trying to always grow the world around me as an entrepreneur. It definitely came. And when it came fast, and definitely learned for sure. So I do think that that's part of it. And now with our businesses living so publicly, it's almost a necessary skill that wasn't so necessary 20 years ago, or maybe even 10 years ago. But it's the ability to handle the situation for you and for your businesses, especially as we now face publicly so directly. There's no buffer there anymore. That's interesting. The mic's yours, guys, as we sort of finish things up. Maybe things I didn't cover, maybe questions I didn't ask or cover that you want to talk about. I want to make sure I give that to you guys. It's yours, so anything else you guys want to add? And make sure you let everyone know where they can find you online for sure.
I think it's important for any entrepreneur to just start on the side when you still have the safety of a job, and then when your job, it's sometimes it's time to leave that job, or the job thinks it's time for you to leave, and then you make that step. And I think it's very important to try and start. Yes, with the YouTube, we thought we at the beginning it didn't make anything, and then it makes some money, and they're like, oh, this is going to grow, and it grows, but it's way slower than anyone would expect. On the other side, the bakery is completely the opposite. It's because you're selling a product, it's basically money in hand right away. And then it all depends on how good your product is and how much you can make of it. And we've sold out every market we've done so far. And that's why we bought an extra oven with the money we made. So we can almost double our production and hopefully keep selling out. But we're still holding on to the safety of our jobs until it's not possible anymore. And yes, it means sleeping less hours, and it means giving up the gym, and it sometimes means doing like skipping a party and that. But I think the freedom of being an entrepreneur is totally worth it. And you can always work for somebody else. If it goes wrong, you can work for somebody else again. But try.
Absolutely. And as far as where to find us, we are at the Port Orange Market every Saturday morning from 8 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are in the Mount Dora Village Market in downtown Mount Dora every Sunday from 9 till 2. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, and that would be at the Dutch. No,
The
Little Dutch Bakery. My mistake. So that is the Little Dutch Bakery on Instagram and Facebook. And you can kind of comment, DM us, interact with us. We definitely love to interact with people and find out what people like to try to incorporate a lot of those things. We create everything ourselves. We are the bakers. We are the accountants. We are the social media managers. We are the sellers. We are the packers. We are absolutely us three is what you get. But definitely come see us. We love to meet people. We are, obviously, you can tell from the podcast, not shy. We love to talk and get to know people and find things in common and get to build relationships over food and baked goods.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming on the show. And this will be my wrap up for you guys. Competitions. Obviously, we talked about Nathaniel being a soccer player. There's Bas and Nathaniel in cooking competitions. I wonder if there's more there. Nature of the beast. We, being an athlete, we tend to translate that competitive nature into our business, into our lives. Talk to me a little bit more about that. Why competitions? Why the desire to do them? Why sort of the family is sort of going in this direction? And is there longevity to this? Is this something that's sort of growing slowly as a way of marketing and advertising your business and your skills, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do think social media takes time. It definitely does. But I think when you do it yourself, you're putting your real self out there. And you're creating the image that you truly are. I think it's hard when I've had friends ask me to try to do social media for them. It's very hard for me to put myself in their shoes and try to portray what they are, because it's always me and our personalities, what we are tempted to portray. So I think there is a lot of value on creating social media yourself and doing it. I do think as we grow, it's something that we truly enjoy. I don't doubt that if this grows crazily, we may have to get a little help here and there. But at the end of the day, we truly believe in that personal connection and always being involved in those kind of things. In regards to the competitions, for us, they have happened very spontaneously. It hasn't been something that we've been looking for. Bas was invited to a competition and did really well. For Nathaniel, it was actually an ad on Facebook that popped up. And again, it was in the middle of COVID. And we said, why not? We always have this motto, what do we have to lose? If anything, you can gain skills, you can gain experience. So it's okay to go into it. And if you don't do well, hey, you have a great experience and something that you learn. So we always go with open eyes and open arms about anything that pops our way. And fortunately, it has worked on our favor.
I love it. Thank you guys for coming on the show again. Thank you everyone for listening in the audience. Continue to like, love, share, subscribe, follow the entrepreneurs that are out there, follow what they're doing. They're on here. That's how we support them. Order their product. If you're in Orlando, go try to visit the farmers markets that they're at over one of the weekends. I will put all the social media and links you guys need in the episode notes for everyone. So they have that along with the summary, the episode transcript for everyone that everyone's asked for, and any links that you're also asking for. Also, the Gorilla Brave Instagram site is also out there for everyone. It's more of the low-hanging stuff right now for all of the new and upcoming entrepreneurs or individuals trying to get into certain areas or diversify their business into consumer packaged goods or into food trucks or food trailers, whatever it is. I'm trying to get all the information out there to everyone as promised. So it's all going out there. My years of experience filtered through the podcast, filtered through academics, and then it's out there. So everyone has it to use however you guys want. So that is the point of the show. And that wasn't my intent of the show, but it is what it became. It became more educational and became growing the entrepreneurs who are on the show too. I should emphasize that for everyone. Fellowship, reach out to the entrepreneurs on the show. A lot of them want to interact with you. They want to share with you. They want to learn with you, from you, together. That's one of the things that I've seen over the last 6 years, guys, is one of the things that happens is connections, or I connect people where they ask to be connected to other entrepreneurs, and those connections and that fellowship has grown, and individuals want to network and want to visit each other and want events. That's how Gorilla Brave sort of came out of that. And then the individuals who don't end up being on the podcast that still want to have that sort of environment, that still want to be a part of a growing growth mindset in food and beverage. That's what I'll call it for now. That's the avenue there. So allowing it to grow organically and take my opinion of how it all should grow out of the equation completely. And it's now growing. So see how that works. It's so true. You try to put too much of yourself into something, you have one customer, just you, instead of being open to the world. So I'll leave that with everyone. I think we learned that today on this show. And lastly, I will also say, just remember the discipline of allowing what you're doing to grow on its own, making small investments, not biting off anything too big, because if you discover something small in your business is actually something that'll lead to the big growth in your business, you just spend all your money on big money on the thing that's actually small and not going to lead to the growth of your business. So creativity, growth, small investments, they are very important in business and growth. And we just talked about what that discipline and that obedience leads to. So thank you both for joining us today. Thank you, everyone in the audience. I love you guys, and we're out.